Welcome to the Mary Mac Show, where we will be talking about your feelings, experiences, and pain following the death of a loved one. Hello, my friends, my warriors. This is Mary Mac of the Mary Mac Show. I am privileged today to have Ed Bisch with me. He lost his son Eddie in 2001, and he has become a strong advocate against the pharmaceutical industry who pushes the pills that kill our kids. And I'm grateful that he's with me today. We're going to talk about his son Eddie, who died. And we're going to talk about his grief as well. And then we're going to explain to you everything that's going on with the pharmaceutical company and how implicit and explicit they have been in harming the people of our country with these drugs that are highly addictive and cause individuals to have ruined lives because of it. So I thank you, Ed, for being here today. You are such an advocate in this area, and I'm so grateful for you being here with us today.
Thanks, Mary. So I'll start from the beginning.
Please do.
President's Day 2001. I was in work downtown Philadelphia. I got a call from my daughter. She said, "Dad, Eddie's turning blue and he's not breathing."
Oh my.
This is totally out of the blue. I was like, "Call 911." I put down the phone, said to the guy, "I gotta go." I ran outside, hopped in the cab. Yeah, I was only 2 miles away from Center City. I'm like, hurry, hurry. On the way, I'm saying a prayer and pull up to the corner, and my house is in the middle of the block. I start running up the street. I see an ambulance outside my house. And I said, "Thank you, God." But as I got closer, I noticed there was two techs sitting in the ambulance.
Oh boy.
And they just looked at me and they said, "Sorry, sir. Nothing we could do." I said, "Don't tell me he's dead." I ran into the house and one of my brothers were there and he stopped me from going up the steps. And it was total shock. And it's like, what? He's dead? I mean, this is 2001.
Right.
Kids, my son was a high school senior. Yeah, it was February. He was graduating that June. 6 days, that Saturday, me and him were going to Florida for a father-son fishing trip.
Oh.
And so I started, just thinking, what could have happened? And next thing I know, some of his friends were gathering outside. And I went out and I said, tell me, what did he do? They said an oxy. I said, what the hell's an oxy?
Yeah.
They said an OxyContin. It's like a strong Percocet. I was like, no, my son's laying in his bed dead. And that's the very first time I heard the word OxyContin. My son was laying in his bed dead. Went back inside. I had my head down on the kitchen table crying. And the police sergeant came in and he said, OxyContin, kids are dying left and right from this stuff. I jumped right up. I said, what?
Yeah.
How? I mean, I read the newspaper every day. I watched the nightly news. How did I never hear about this? And I was angry. So next thing you know, my sister, who was a nurse, she came over and We had computer, internet was pretty rough back then. You had
I
the
know.
modem.
The AOL with the tone.
So, but after the police, my very first thought is I gotta warn the kids.
Yeah.
There's a pill out there that can kill them. Because back in 2001, a pill did not kill you.
No.
I mean, the only people, if you were a heroin addict using a needle, you might OD. I had a high school senior back then. so, so we got on the internet, and I was shocked to see all these stories. And most of them were from like Virginia, West Virginia, Maine. And like I said, that very night, we had a fax machine. We faxed as many schools as we could. One page. Please warn your kids, warn your students that there's a new drug out there and it's killing kids. And one of the things, next thing I know, the newspaper came over to interview me.
Mm.
They told me that like 18 people had died in 3 months in
Wow.
Philadelphia. And it didn't hit the news yet. So they gave me an interview, and I was on the front page of the paper the next day. And we called a press conference at the 26th Police District in Philadelphia.
Oh, good for you.
Every news station
Came.
showed up, and NPR showed up, and the newspaper showed up. And, I was still gathering exactly what happened, but I just wanted to get ASAP to warn kids. There's a new drug out there and it can kill you. You can't mess with this stuff.
Right.
And so that was 2001. So make a long story short, I went on a TV show, a Sunday morning talk show, and it was a live show, and I told them and I warned them about OxyContin, and I was going on message boards spreading the news. And by the end of the TV show, by the time I got home, the producer called me and said, we had 3 people who want to build you a website. And so I said, well, who is the first one that called? And I took that person. So this is 2001. Websites were brand new.
They were. I even had one for books and I couldn't have my own. I had to tack on with other people.
Right. So we got that up and running real fast. It started as one page. So it was a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
I started going around with the Philadelphia Police Department, talking at high schools and some middle schools.
Oh, good for you.
And that was good for a while, but they were warning about all kinds of drugs. They were talking about marijuana and heroin, and these kids, it wasn't even, the most deadliest thing out there was this new drug, OxyContin. So another thing that happened was about 3 weeks into the website, Purdue Pharma emailed me. Purdue Pharma is the company that makes OxyContin.
Wow.
They said, look, we just want you to let you know our drug is a great drug for patients. It's just people, when they abuse it, it can be deadly. I had no reason to doubt them. I mean, it's FDA approved, right? So I said, okay. And then, struck up some emails, and they said, look, if you ever want to talk about prescription drug abuse, we're willing to help you. So I was going around with the police department, and they would only give me 5 minutes. I said, no, I got to do my own program on pills, because that's what's killing the kids. So I actually went up to Purdue Pharma. And in the meantime, I was starting to get email from all over the country from people who got addicted and they were patients, or relatives whose relatives died. Some of them started as patients, and emails from other parents who died like Getty, just buying it on the street. So another thing that I had learned was there was a pill mill doctor flooding Philadelphia with OxyContin.
Oh,
And the detectives told me, look, we've been watching this guy 8 months. We're about to make an arrest. But as soon as I heard that, I'm thinking 8 months. Why so long?
yeah.
Now my son got one of them last pills. Why not a month? Why did it take 8 months? Come to find out that it usually takes a couple of years to bust a doctor.
Wow.
So 8 months was kind of actually fast, but I didn't realize that at the time. So when I went up to Purdue Pharma, they wined and dined me, filet mignon and
Ah!
our drugs great. And I say, so I met with the medical director, J. David Haddocks. And I said, the one thing that's bothering me, I get a lot of emails, and a lot of them are from patients who got addicted. And he looked me in the face and he said, well, they must be doing something wrong because less than 1% of patients get addicted. And, it made me feel a little uneasy, like my
Yeah.
spider senses tingled a little.
Uh-huh. You knew
Like,
something wasn't just right.
okay. Oh, so I said to him, so sales are down. He looked me in the face. He says, yes, a lot. Okay. So I went home and I wound up getting a small donation from Purdue, which I bought a laptop and a projector and software to give my presentation.
That was smart.
3 days later, 3 months later, I'm reading the newspaper and it says sales of OxyContin increased 43% in 1 year.
Oh my God.
I knew I almost fell off my chair.
Right.
I knew my suspicions that company was full of shit and they were lying to me and they were lying to the country. So by then, my website was growing, and the sole purpose of the website was to warn kids not to mess with OxyContin. As a matter of fact, the original name was oxykills.com.
Okay.
But I started getting a lot of emails from chronic pain patients saying I was going to ruin their drug that they needed. And I would go through and I explain to them, look, I have nothing against your drug or you as a patient.
Right.
I'm warning kids not to abuse it. So one of the things I did when I went up to Purdue and took their donation, not knowing how crooked they were, I changed the name from Oxy Kills to Oxy Abuse Kills. Because frankly, I was tired of defending myself every single day. So, but once I found out that he lied to my face about the sales, I'm thinking, how stupid is that? Like I wasn't going to find out. So I was pissed. I shot off a couple nasty emails to Purdue, and I knew right then and there my website now has two missions. Mission one is to warn kids not to mess with this. Mission two is to make the country aware that Purdue is crooked and they're lying. So this was February 2001. In August 2001, the very first congressional hearing
Oh,
was in August 2001 was held right outside Philadelphia. They had busted the pill mill doctor in Bensalem, PA.
okay.
And the congressman was the chairman of the House Ways and Means.
Ooh.
So they held the very first hearing. So I went, and Purdue's president was there and their top lawyer. And I'm listening, and the Congressman Jim Greenwood, he said to the Purdue CEO, he said, "So I know you have IMS data, and IMS data is a database."
Okay.
And he said, "So I know you knew exactly how many pills this doctor was prescribing. Why did you not notify the authorities?" And the CEO started mumbling, and then the lawyer jumped in.
Of course.
He didn't really answer the question. He gave legal leads.
Yes.
Okay. So that just made me like, you know, like I was almost in shock. So they knew this pill mill was flooding Philadelphia, and they said nothing. So obviously, I put that news right up on my website.
Now, may I ask you, was Sackler CEO at that point, president at that point? Did he testify?
So no, the president was Michael Friedman. The Sacklers were in the background. Okay, they did everything they could. I knew the Sackler family owned it, but I looked at them as the owners,
Yes.
and I'll get to that. But so this is 2001. So there was supposed to be another congressional hearing. 9/11 happens,
Right.
and the Sacklers get away. They dodged the bullet. And I found out years later, 9/11, Purdue Pharma is in Stamford, Connecticut. They could actually see the Twin Towers from their office.
Oh, yes.
So on 9/12, while the Twin Towers were still smoldering and they saw the smoke, the vice president of sales for Purdue Pharma sent out a company-wide voicemail to all the sales reps. And it said something to the effect, due to the tragic events of yesterday, it takes OxyContin out of the news. So now would be a great time to go visit your top prescribers.
Oh, boy.
Like I said, they were taking heat, they were in the news. And unfortunately, I mean, 9/11 really helped them. And I'll mention that later when I get near the end, what I've been saying about the Sacklers and Purdue. So this is 2001. So in 2003, my website's going, and I'm hearing from literally hundreds, thousands of people.
Wow.
And I opened the paper one day and I see a picture of three moms standing outside of Purdue Pharma with posters of their dead kids.
Ooh.
And I said, "That's a great idea."
Let me hook
So,
up with those women.
so I reached out to the paper and I got in contact with one of the moms. And here a reporter tipped me off that there was going to be a big sales convention for Purdue in Orlando, Florida.
Oh.
So, so through email, everything was done through email. Through email, about 10 parents got together and we planned on going and protesting. And they said, "Well, we got to name ourselves. What are we going to call ourselves?" And we came up with RAPP, Relatives Against Purdue Pharma. And this is our original pen.
Yep.
People used to see this and say, "Why are you against RAPP?" Because no one knew who Purdue Pharma was, so we would explain it.
Right. And just so our audience knows, Ed has a page on Facebook that you can join with the exact same name.
Right.
Relatives Against Purdue Pharma. It's a Facebook page, so you could look that up and we'll have the links at the end.
Right. Right. And we'll put it in there, or you could search @RAPP Ed B for Ed B.
Okay.
But RAPP Ed B, that'll take you right to the page. So this was 2003. So more and more stories are coming out about Purdue Pharma. Of course, they're denying, or even denying that there's an epidemic. Unbelievable. 2003, later that year. So you had the very first congressional hearing, 2001. 2003, the very first book, Painkiller, which is you can watch on Netflix. Um, that book comes out, and I read that book. I was like, oh my God, it listed their crimes. And I was like, oh, they got them now. But no. But what happened was that book helped spur an investigation. So in Southwest Virginia, John Brownlee started an investigation.
And
Rick
who
Moncastle.
is John Bradley?
John Brownlee was the U.S. attorney for Southwest Virginia.
Oh, great.
Um, if you watch the show Dopesick on Hulu, to me that is the best show to watch. You'll see all about John Brownlee and two heroes, Rick Moncastle and Randy Ramsnayer. And this was an understaffed little office, and they started digging. So they started digging, and I had heard rumors that there was an investigation. Of course, nothing's easy. So one of the things that Purdue would do is they would ask Purdue for documents. Well, Purdue sent down tractor trailers full of boxes and boxes.
To overload them.
Right. So make a long story short, and Dopesick is all about this, the investigation. They nailed them. Rick Moncastle wrote a 120-page prosecution. Wow. Okay. They sent that to DOJ in Washington. And here in the meantime, Purdue Pharma hired Rudy Giuliani. They hired
Oh my God. Who else?
Eric Holder.
Ah,
They hired Mary Jo White, who's a big time
yes.
attorney for New York. You probably heard of her.
Yeah.
Anyway, make a long story short, members of RAPP, we were invited to give a victim statement at the hearing
Yes.
for Purdue Pharma. So
Yes.
I think it was in May of 2007, we went to Abington, Virginia. Now remember, the Sacklers were still in the background. We were looking, the three individuals charged were Michael Friedman, Howard Udell, and I'll remember the other guy's name.
But Friedman was the president
Friedman
at the
was
time.
the CEO, yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Goldenheim, Paul Goldenheim, he was the chief medical officer.
Okay.
They were actually charged, but we didn't know this at the time. We begged the judge to give them jail time. And the judge says, he more or less apologized to us. And he wanted to give them jail time. He says, but I gotta go with the guidelines. Okay. Well, nobody knew about this 120-page memo because the brass at the DOJ buried it. The judge never saw the 120-page memo. So they wound up getting probation and community service. At the time, it was a record fine. It was $600 million. This is in 2007.
Okay.
And the executives got 34 million in fines. Of course, now Purdue paid that.
Sure.
Okay. But they really thought this would send a message to the pharmaceutical industry. Well, the problem was OxyContin was selling $2 billion a year. What did Purdue Pharma do after that? Instead of slowing down, they went out and hired 100 more sales reps. And their sales went from $2 billion a year to $3 billion a year. And even though they denied any crimes, one thing they couldn't deny, as the sales went up, the deaths went up.
Sure.
And then you start reading pages, the deaths, you can count the deaths, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. All the people who got addicted and lost their lives, lost their livelihoods,
Yep.
the whole family.
Yes.
The foster care system, especially in West Virginia and Appalachia, went through the roof. So many kids, their parents became addicted
Or died.
or died. And if they didn't have family to fall on, they wound up in the foster care system. It's just a tragedy. So this is 2007. So I kept at it. I kept on the website. I really thought something would happen. But after 2007, another thing Purdue did, they in 2002, they actually says, "Oh, we're working on an abuse-resistant oxy." Okay, so people really thought that was going to make a difference, and Purdue could have brought that out in 2002. They waited till the patent was going to run out on OxyContin. Okay, so in the meantime, we started going to FDA hearings. So Purdue, not only they were so greedy, they weren't just happy with OxyContin. They tried to get another pill, which is time release Dilaudid.
Oh, morphine.
It was called Paladone. It's stronger than it's stronger than OxyContin. So we went to hearings and we protested against that. And I gotta remind myself, over the years we've had victories because we helped stop Paladone.
Wow.
Paladone could have killed just as many people as OxyContin.
Without a doubt.
And we helped stop that. So that was RAPP. So then I think it was 2010, 2011. OxyContin's patent was going to run out. So they come out with this abuse resistant, which made it harder to crush, harder to melt down, but there was ways around it. But here, so the patent ran out on OxyContin. Here, Purdue actually went to the FDA hearing. This is after 10 years saying that their drug was not a problem, the patients, blah, blah, blah. They actually had the nerve to testify to the FDA that the original OxyContin was too dangerous to let generics sell it. Yes. Yes. Oh, I was outraged. And sure enough, the FDA, they listened to Purdue. They stopped the original OxyContin because it was too dangerous. So, this is a 22-year journey for me. So there's so much, it would take me 8 hours to tell you everything.
Right.
But anybody who watch Dopesick, they'll learn, or even Painkiller, they'll learn that when they approved OxyContin in 1995, it came out in 96. The guy who worked for the FDA, Dr. Curtis Wright, he actually met with Purdue Pharma in a hotel for 3 days and helped them write the application.
Oh, how lovely.
OxyContin was approved in record time. Okay. Dr. Curtis Wright eventually left the FDA, and 9 months later, who do you think he went to work for?
Of course.
Purdue Pharma.
Right. And I can only imagine what kind of compensation he got for writing that.
I'll tell you exactly.
Oh, you know?
Yes, he got paid almost $400,000 a year by Purdue Pharma, 3 times his FDA salary.
And I wonder how much he got paid off to do
It's
the.
criminal. Yeah. Who knows? Who
Uh,
knows? I mean, and like I said, Dopesick, the miniseries or the book. Excellent book. If you're ready to read, this is a great book. I'm in here. I'm in chapter 3, RAPP. And my story, a lot what I just told you, you can read about. But Beth Macy did a great job. And so around 2011, 2010, 2011, the new OxyContin just came out. I was burnt out. I had to step away. You asked me earlier about my grief. Definitely getting so involved helped me process my grief. Well, I was literally burnt out. I stopped watching the news. I totally got away from it.
mhm.
Um, I think this book came out in 2016, 2017. I forget. Beth Macy called me out of the blue. Someone that told her, a member of RAPP told her about me, and so I told her where I stood. I said, "Look, I got away from it, but she told my story. But
That was very kind.
yes, I still, I still like removed. Well, 2018, and so make a long story short, like I said, the Sacklers went out of their way to stay in the background. We knew
Tell people
they
who the Sacklers are.
the Sacklers owned Purdue Pharma. It was a private company. We didn't know they were hands-on owners. They totally called all the shots.
Wow.
And so 2018, Patrick Radden Keefe, who wrote a great book called Empire of Pain, he did an article in the New Yorker, a big article, and he pulled back the veil on the Sacklers.
That's certainly an impressive title, I have to say.
Yes, yes, and that's what it was, Empire of Pain. Um, there was another author, forgetting his name right now. Same month, he came out with a similar article in Esquire. So now people knew about the Sacklers. Well, Maura Healey, the Attorney General of Massachusetts, up until that point, people had tried to sue Purdue, and Purdue settled a lot of cases. At first, they said, we'll never settle a case. Well, they started settle thousands of cases. The problem is they would always insist that the records get sealed. So the evidence wasn't getting out. So Maura Healey actually named the Sacklers in a lawsuit. And not only that, she put her lawsuit online. So
Oh.
anybody could read proof. When I read that lawsuit, I was like, oh my God, they got him. They got him. So I called out some original RAPP members and I told them, you got to check this out. And we got to get back involved. So start following it a little. And one day you see a headline, Purdue Pharma files bankruptcy. I was like, oh, great. Finally. Start reading the article here, like the third paragraph down. The Sacklers are insisting on civil immunity. And I
Screw
saw that.
that.
And I said out loud, this is a bankruptcy scam.
Yeah.
This is all about getting them immunity, um, for their crimes. Now, this is just civil. Criminal immunity is still on the table. It's hard to prove, but there's 10 books detailing their crimes. Okay, 3 miniseries. literally thousands and thousands of newspaper articles, documentaries. It's there. So what RAPP has been doing, we've been encouraging the DOJ just follow the evidence. So Sacklers file bankruptcy. Long story short, eventually all the AGs give in and give them what they want, which is civil immunity. But it gets appealed. It gets appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. And that's where it's at now. So on December 4th, it's going to be argued in the Supreme Court.
This December 4th.
This December 4th, and anybody can listen. Okay. So
who's spearheading it on our side?
So the DOJ, the department that handles bankruptcy is called the U.S. trustee. And the U.S. trustee, because this is another long story. So, excuse me. This book, Unsettled, it's written by Ryan Hampton. It's literally an insider's book to the bankruptcy and how corrupt it was. And when I say this whole thing was set up, and the Sacklers almost paid $1 billion to lawyers already, $1 billion. You know, so what kind of bankruptcy costs $1 billion in lawyers? So there's another long story. The judge here in bankruptcy, it's called Judge Show. Everybody
say his name again, Ed.
Ryan Hampton.
No, the judge's name.
Judge Robert Drain. So the judge was handpicked by Purdue Pharma. Okay. And this is no lie. On the very first hearing, you call in and you listen. I called in a little late. My wife said, "Who's talking?" I says, "Oh, it has to be a Purdue lawyer." I kept on listening, and it was the judge.
Wow.
Like, oh my God, that's the judge. I knew it's going to be a long case then. And sure enough, 3 years later, it's going to the Supreme Court, which is another big ordeal. There's a little bit of controversy because, you know, the Sacklers, like all these opioid settlements, I'm sure you heard about the opioid settlement.
Yes.
So besides any money from Purdue, $5 billion in settlement side. I call them blood settlements. Okay? Because it was paid with my son's blood and everybody else kid who, you know, passed away or got addicted. And so that's another big fiasco because there's 55 billion already. The Sacklers are offering 6 billion, but they're offering 6 billion over 18 years, backloaded.
That's so crazy.
Purdue Pharma declares bankruptcy. The Sacklers are not bankrupt. They're still filthy rich. If this gets upheld, they'll be able to pay that money with the interest they made. Another thing they did, they literally, after 2007, they started moving money offshore to the Isle of Jersey. And it's this little island that has special rules to basically protect money of the rich and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the attorney generals knew this, but the laws are, it's so hard. I was actually on a Zoom call with Letitia James. And she told us to our face, she said, "I would love to send investigators over to the Isle of Jersey, but I just can't do it now."
Why can't you do it?
Because it would have, I don't know. She didn't get into it, but it would have been too hard for her. So that's another.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that sounds like an excuse.
You know, if If the Sackler's name started with a T, I think she would have sent the investigators. But that's another story. Um, so so that's where we are with the bankruptcy. So one of the things that RAPP did after Painkiller, after Dopesick ran on Hulu in 2001, we actually held a rally outside the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., calling for the DOJ to do their job and follow the evidence. Maura Healey actually said on NPR, she said, I've seen all the evidence the DOJ has. They should criminally prosecute the Sacklers. And the guy says, well, Maura, why don't you do it? She says, the states are not equipped to criminally prosecute. This has to be federal. So we went outside. Rick Moncastle, the man who wrote the 120-page memo, he actually came to our DOJ rally.
Oh.
Danny Strong, who did Dopesick on Hulu, he came. Dan Schneider, I'm wearing The Pharmacist. The Pharmacist is another great show on Netflix. That's another documentary. Like I said, the evidence is out there. So Maura Healey actually said, I've seen all the evidence. The DOJ has enough to prosecute. So we held a rally, and then after that rally, we actually got a Zoom meeting with the New Jersey Attorney General, and that's where the latest case was filed. Not the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew they weren't going to tell us nothing, but they more or less confirmed it's an ongoing investigation. It's like, okay.
How ongoing do we have to be?
Exactly. So that was 2021. So 2023, almost 2 years went by. Painkiller came out on Netflix, another show similar to Dopesick, listing Purdue's crimes. We went back to the DOJ again, calling for them to do their job.
Right.
And so I will say is no state secret. I just pray that it's true. There's been a rumor that the DOJ, if they're going to do anything, they're waiting for this bankruptcy to get resolved either way. And I just pray that's true. I mean, I know it's a long shot because the Sacklers, like I said, they spent billions and billions of dollars covering their crimes.
Sure.
Okay. So one thing I'm hoping on December 4th, I'm praying one of these Supreme Court justices asked the question, just how culpable are the Sacklers for the opioid epidemic? Okay. So that brings us today. So along the way, fentanyl, illicit fentanyl. So what happened with OxyContin? They planted the seeds. Before OxyContin, Percocets were the common pain reliever. They were 5 milligrams, and they were mixed with acetaminophen. So you can only take so much. Maybe there was 10 milligram Percocet, but that was rare. Along comes OxyContin, and instead of people taking 5 milligrams of Percocet, they're taking 80 milligrams of OxyContin. An 80 milligram OxyContin is 16 Percocet. So a lot of kids who died, they snorted an 80 milligram. They had no clue. They were like snorting 16 Percocet.
Right. And the powerfulness of it.
Right. So Purdue totally changed the landscape. They spent millions and millions. They propped up false chronic pain. Remember, I told you I was getting a lot of emails from chronic pain patients.
Yes.
Well, I didn't realize Purdue Pharma propped up them morgues. And they actually ran some of the orgs, and they got their members to literally attack anybody who tried to speak out against OxyContin. It's been going on and on. So after OxyContin, it did become less popular when they reformulated it because it wasn't giving people the high that it used to. They could still get high, but it wasn't. Well, enter fentanyl. And started with the patches,
Yep.
then the lollipops, and then Subsys. So Subsys was a under the tongue fentanyl. And so, they picked right up, they followed Purdue's game plan. Another culprit who I think is probably the number 2 culprit is a consultant company called McKinsey. So McKinsey, they coached Purdue Pharma. Okay.
Whoa.
Not only did they coach Purdue Pharma, they actually went out and coached all these other drug companies. So like 90% of the drug companies that were in opioids had McKinsey coaching them.
Oh, just lovely.
So while you got kids dying and people dying and getting addicted, McKinsey had at least 5 consultants working for Purdue Pharma at the same time working for the FDA, how to combat the crisis. You think that's a conflict of interest?
Just a touch.
Right. So they were they were always one step ahead of the FDA, who, let's face it, government screws up everything. And people's eyes have opened up to the FDA the last couple of years. But before that, they had a good reputation. But then after the Curtis Wright fiasco, started to, see really what they were about. And so that's where we are. But to get to fentanyl, so I'm very active on Facebook, and I met April Babcock, who started Lost Voices of Fentanyl. And me and her talked, and I told her my son's story, and she said, "Ed, do you realize so many of the fentanyl parents are just like you? The first time they heard of fentanyl, their kids were dead from it, And then it's even more insidious because, some of these kids thought they were taking Adderall.
Yes.
They
Or a
thought they were,
Xanax, or like a
or
Xanax,
Xanax. Yes,
something for
yes.
pain, or
So,
anxiety.
so that's definitely poisoning. But my whole point is, and I went to the fentanyl rally in Washington, D.C., and they let me
Yes.
talk.
I heard
And
you speak there.
I just remind everybody, if not for the crimes of Purdue Pharma, the fentanyl crisis would not be nearly as bad as it is. Like I said, the whole nation, they went from doing 5 milligrams of oxycodone for pain for Percocet to like 80 milligrams 2 times a day. At one time, Purdue Pharma was actually telling doctors, because that's another thing. During the test, almost 50% of the patients said OxyContin don't work 12 hours, which was OxyContin's big selling point. Well, the FDA, because it was like 51% said it worked, they let Purdue say it's a 12-hour medicine. Well, not for 49% of the people. So what did they do? They would go into withdrawal. So they would prescribe Percocets or Vicodin along with the OxyContin. Again, the milligrams up, up, up. One of the crimes that Purdue's guilty of, they were like titrate, titrate, titrate. So it was always up the dosage, and they would push their doctors. So one of the things RAPP did, there was one sales rep in Florida, in Tampa Bay, Florida, Karen White. So Purdue fired her. Purdue said she was a bad sales rep. Well, Karen said no. She would go to doctor's offices and she knew they were pill mills. So she refused to stop going to these doctors. Well, Purdue fired her. So she sued Purdue Pharma for wrongful termination.
Good.
So we went down there to support Karen. So Karen had her one little lawyer. Purdue shows up with 10 lawyers. I was in the courtroom all week. It was a week-long trial. So earlier that year, there was a $2 million GAO report produced on OxyContin deaths. The government did this report, $2 million to pay for it. Karen's lawyer submitted his evidence. Purdue got that thrown out.
Oh my
Thrown out
God.
was they said there was some hearsay in it, right? So I got a cold, so that's what's going
Aw.
on here.
I'll
Uh,
pause us. Let's pause us for a moment.
pause this a second.
Okay,
So
we're back.
I got together with April, and she let me say a few words at the Lost Voices of Fentanyl rally. The last 2 years I've been there, and
The last one when I was there, it was really a stormy day, wasn't it?
oh yeah, yep, yep.
Wow.
God
All
bless.
those people endured all that wind and rain and cold,
Yeah,
and I just thought that was remarkable.
yeah, no, very, very impressive. One point about that, some people say, we're all for, we want the border closed. And then some people, they say, oh, yeah, but 90% get in ports of entries. But yes, if we close the border, we could move resources to the ports of entry. Okay. So, I say we need three things. I call them the three R's.
Okay.
We need supply reduction, we need demand reduction, and we need harm reduction. And we need all three of these things to try to turn this thing around. And unfortunately, there's little squabbles between some of the groups. Some people are a little too sensitive. If you say, well, my kid was poisoned, they get offended, and they shouldn't get offended. If my son took even the OxyContin and it was fentanyl, I would say my son was poisoned. Should have been doing the OxyContin, but Eddie was pure OxyContin. Um, so there's money out there. Like I said, 55 billion in blood settlements, and we'll see. I hope that it makes a difference, but until them three R's come together and people start working together, this thing ain't going to turn around. And but we can't give up. As
Nope.
bad as it is, I know for a fact if some of the stuff RAPP has done over the years has saved lives.
Yes.
I have a whole folder of emails saying as much.
Yes.
And same way with these parents who are warning against fentanyl. I mean, you got parents chipping in, doing billboards. You don't know who saw that billboard. It might have saved them, and they don't even know it.
That's right. That's right.
But the word's getting out more and more, and everybody thinks, oh, everybody knows it. No, everybody don't know it yet.
No, they don't.
So there's a lot of work to be done, and you just got to chug along. And I know for me, being an activist, meeting other parents, I listened to a couple of your podcasts. Ed Koblis, I've met him, I know him, and I know the lady from Florida. Her name's forgetting me.
Andy Lee.
That, yeah, Lee. Yeah. Well,
Andrea Lee. She
yeah,
calls
yeah,
it.
yeah,
She calls
yeah.
herself Andy Lee.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep, yep. So, but
she
you
went
know,
through a lot with her daughter.
I listened to that thing. Yeah. So you know, yes, it's horrible, and we got to turn this around.
Absolutely.
And you know, it took the government 15 years to get Purdue Pharma under control. If they take 15 years to get fentanyl under control, we're going to be up to 1 million kids a year dying, and
Yes.
it's ridiculous. And hopefully things turn around starting in 2024, but we'll see.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really horrific is when you hear the little babies, like at the,
Oh,
daycare in the
yes.
Bronx and things like that, where they're completely innocent,
Yeah.
and they become exposed to something either because of daycare or because of drug dealers or even
Horrible. Yeah.
because of their own parents dealing or using.
Yes. Yes. It's a disaster. It's a disaster that doesn't get enough attention.
Yeah.
And, you know, the government has to get serious, and parents, we got to keep on yelling. That's all we can do.
Yeah. And letting more parents better understand what really is happening and what is not happening, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
and I often say the era of experimentation with drugs is over. It's
Right.
not
Right.
like when we were growing up and people would say, "Oh,
No,
try
it's
a
not.
joint," right? Try a joint. And then
Right.
now we find out that fentanyl is being laced in joints and killing people.
Yeah, it's horrible. So let me recap the shows we talked about.
Okay.
So I would say if you're going to watch one show, watch Dopesick on Hulu. It's by far the more accurate to real life. Okay, Dopesick on Hulu. On HBO, there's a documentary called Crime of the Century.
Wow.
Yeah, that says it all. That's a good one to watch.
Another great title.
Okay. You have Painkiller on Netflix. You have The Pharmacist, Dan Schneider, my buddy. They're actually going to be making a real movie. It was a great documentary, but hopefully in a year or two, there's going to be a real movie about it. If you really want to know about the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy scam, this is an insider book. I live it, and I am in this book too. But you'll read that and you'll be like,
That
so
can't be
corrupt,
happening. Yeah.
so corrupt. Oh, it happened. Money buys a lot. Like I said, Purdue has spent almost $1 billion on lawyers. And I'll buy you a lot. Oh, okay. So the hand-picked judge, he retired 7 years early. Did you ever hear of a judge retiring early?
No, because
No.
they
They're usually
probably
right.
they
They're set. They're set. Now, he retired 7 years early. Who did he go to work for? A Purdue Pharma law firm
Oh
that
my
represented
God.
Purdue Pharma.
Well, he
This,
sounds like he got paid off.
this is this is a man who just oversaw a billion with a B. My point of view, every major decision went the way of the Sacklers of Purdue Pharma in this case, including the biggest thing. Right away, on day one, what did this judge do? He stopped all lawsuits against Purdue. There was 2,600 lawsuits going against Purdue, and some of them against the Sacklers. Two Sacklers were supposed to get deposition that week. So they would have had to answer questions under oath.
Mm-hmm.
Actual evidence could have came out. Nope. Judge Drain stopped it all. Now he works for one of their law firms. And it's unreal. apparently it's not illegal because we called it out. That's for sure. Um, there's a website called the-curtains.com. The-curtains.com. You go there. One of the things we had a 20-foot curtain of Judge Drain because we wanted to call him out. You know, when he went and worked for Purdue's law firm, there was two national stories about it. That should have been friggin' on the national news to me. Come on.
Yep. Yep.
You know, it is what it is, but I'm not giving up quite yet. Personally, I think if nothing happens this year or next year, nothing will never happen. As far as this Purdue bankruptcy scam, I hope the Supreme Court does the right thing because not only do you have Purdue, if they uphold these third party releases, you could have any company doing criminal activities and then declare bankruptcy and never be held accountable unless they go after them criminally. But unfortunately, white collar crimes, they don't go after criminally. And they
No.
need to.
Yes, they do.
I wrote an op-ed for Stat Magazine. And the bottom line was until they start criminally prosecuting for deadly crimes, just fines ain't cutting it. Because the companies look at it as the cost of doing business.
Yes, they do.
So that's about it.
Ed, you've given us so much of your life today, explaining so much of what you've gone through since Eddie's death. And I really appreciate you educating us about this criminal organization because that's what they are. I mean, it's really sad to hear all that you've had to go through and all the other families have had to go through just to try to find some sense of justice with this company, Purdue Pharma.
Yeah, I mean, I will mention it because people don't know. People, oh, Purdue's bankruptcy, the victims are getting money. The victims are getting 7.5%. The states are taking over 93% of the money. Okay.
Not convenient.
Some people think this is going to change things. Like I said, there's already 55 billion out there. This will add to it. But how much is it going to change over 18 years? Another thing with the 18 years, it's backloaded, which means they pay most of the money. You know, this is another thing that galls me. They would always say, oh, we need to get these money out as soon as possible. Yeah, as soon as possible. Well, why did you write in 18 years? Why don't you pay it all up front? You know? No, so they play games.
Yeah.
They play games and they're full of crap. And anybody who reads Unsettled, they know they're full of crap. And yet to be determined what happened. So
Well,
see.
I'd like to believe that the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court will at least give it a really good look over and hopefully something good will come out of it.
Like
I
I
to
said,
believe that.
I'm praying one of the justices asks some hard questions. You know, that's another thing Judge Drain could have done. Judge Drain could have they're called bellwether cases. He could have let one of them suits/trials go forward to see how culpable the Sacklers are. But no, they didn't want that. They don't want the evidence out. Like I said, they've been sealing the evidence for years and years.
Right.
So it's time we need all the evidence out in the public. We need a public trial. Sacklers love saying we did nothing wrong. Well, then defend yourselves. You know, so
Yep.
the DOJ, like I said, the U.S. trustee has stepped up. They're going to the Supreme Court. The DOJ criminal division needs to step up and file charges. And that's what I pray for every night.
Well, we put our intentions with you because this needs to come to an end.
Thank you. And again, Dopesick on Hulu. I can't praise that show enough. Michael Keaton won an award for it. The show should have won. It got robbed, but critically acclaimed. So
Well, I encourage all our viewers to please go watch that, become more educated, to go on also Relatives Against Purdue Pharma, the Facebook page that Ed has. Join it, learn more, and if you are inclined, go to some of the events that are coming up and help Ed to push this forward for everyone's concern.
one thing at the very top of the Relatives Against Purdue Pharma and Ed Bisch. Anybody can see my page. We don't gotta be friends. At the very top, there's a link to email the DOJ. You don't even have to do nothing. All you gotta do is DOJ, do your job, follow the evidence, follow the money.
Right.
That's all they need to do.
Excellent. And also connect with your representatives up in Washington, especially, your congressman or congresswoman and your state US senator, so that they know this is going on, because there's a lot of times they don't know what's going on. So educate them that this is coming up on December 4th, and they expect that they will push for the DOJ to do the right thing.
Yeah. I got my fingers crossed.
Okay, I'll cross them with you. Thank you, Ed, for being with me today. Thank you for sharing so much of your life and of Eddie's life. And I appreciate your educating us so much. We have to know this stuff. We can't do much if we don't have a sense of the horrific nature of this, if we don't have a sense of what's being planned by incredible people like you and those in your groups. And I thank you very much again. I wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Bye bye.